The clothing industry is responsible for 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and there is an urgent call for innovation in the sector. Spinnova, a Finnish company, is answering that call with breakthrough technology, transforming the way textiles are manufactured globally. I sat down at the COP28 talks here in Dubai to talk to Spinnova Deputy CEO Ben Selby and Chief Sales Officer Alan Anderson. Ben and Alan from Spinnova, wonderful to have you here at COP28 in Dubai. What is the main reason for you being here then?
It's great to be here. I think the main reason is that we want to raise awareness of the need also for change in the clothing industry. We talk a lot about renewables and other things at COP, but the clothing industry is also something that needs attention, and Spinnova can bring some of those solutions.
So what are you most excited about over the next week or so?
It's all about listening and learning. And here at COP28, we have the opportunity to listen and to learn. And that is what makes us excited.
Very excited myself to hear all about Spinnova. Let's go and continue the conversation in our studio.
Okay.
Really wonderful to have you here. Thank you for joining us here at COP28.
It's great to be here.
I wanted to start off with what sustainability means to both of you.
Sustainability is the very foundation of what we do at Spinnova. And on a private note, it's kind of, if I take a step back, I'm originally from Denmark, and as a kid I grew up playing in the snow, having fun and a lot of joy every winter. And today the situation is slightly different. So sustainability, and especially looking forward, is for me personally very important.
Ben, over to you. What does sustainability mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's like Alan said, it's everything that matters to us at Spinnova, but personally as well, it feels a little bit crazy that already, let's say 30 years or so ago, when I was at school, we were talking about we need to reduce emissions and global warming and these kind of things, and now here we are, and my son's at school and he's starting to learn the same things, and unfortunately we haven't done enough. So to me it's about that we need to do more, and we need to do more now, and that's why it's also such a privilege to work at a company like Spinnova, where the mission is so clearly about making a change for the better.
You have developed sustainable technology, innovative sustainable technology that's set to revolutionize the fashion and textile industry. Tell us a little bit more about exactly what you do.
So the technology is basically, the easiest way to say is that we mimic the way spider weaves their web. So it's a mechanical spider. And in that we process, or in that technology and innovation, we don't use any harmful chemicals. We don't create any waste. Also with almost zero water added in the process. So I think we have this breakthrough technology and innovation that is very unique. We've talked about different raw materials, but it's one technology, and the same technology can be used across multiple raw materials. So that is very unique. Raw materials can be cellulose or wood-based, it can be cotton waste, but can also be agricultural waste as an example.
So how are you set to revolutionize the industry with this, and what's the progress that's being made so far?
Yeah, well, we have a very bold mission, and it is to, as you say, transform the raw material base of the global textile industry. And that's really important because it's 4% of global emissions come from this sector, so there needs to be a change. And to do that as well, there needs to be the right incentives in place for consumers to be able to make the right choices, and for the new materials to be adopted. So that's where we're focusing.
Speaking of incentives, do you think we need to incentivize the industry more, or do we need to hold the industry accountable and throw a whole load of tax in there? What do you think in your mind sort of works best?
I believe that it's a combination. Incentives to drive the change, and make it a level playing field, And with that, I think we have a bright future in the textile industry.
Yeah, I'd kind of add to that there's been a lot of good progress and good initiatives. So the EU has put out targets that clothing should be durable, repairable, recyclable by 2030, but there's such a long way to go that, as we stand now, only 1% of all clothing is recycled on a global level. So there's a huge way to go. And the same thing goes that the brands are making very good efforts. They put out targets towards reducing their emissions significantly by 2030, but still the proportion of sustainable materials being used is relatively low.
And as you mentioned, it's these big brands that have the main sort of responsibility right now. So can you tell us about some of the brands that you're working with right now?
So we have had the pleasure of working with global brands like Adidas, the Bestseller Group, Marimekko, to mention a couple. We are also in a fortunate situation that we work with some of the important supply chain partners or industrial partners. And these relationships is what have been in the public so far. We are nurturing these, but at the same time we're also establishing new partnerships with brands and also with the supply chain.
So there must be a lot of technology and competition in the market right now to develop sustainable fashion. People are catching on and people want to make change. So what makes you different from the rest?
Yeah, I think first of all I can comment on what makes us different, and then to say also that we welcome that there are other innovators, because actually the problem is so big that we need multiple different solutions. But how we're different, so we have the technology that enables the sustainable materials to be produced that can be used in clothes, and so that's kind of the key from the sustainability perspective. Then when it comes to the actual properties of the garment, it feels natural. So because our fibre, our technology process is more natural, it's mechanical, it's like how a spider spins its web, then you get this more natural feeling. So let's say the kind of other innovations, most of them have some kind of chemical process which leaves more of a silky feeling to the clothes, which is good for some applications, but if you want to have a really good pair of jeans that feels natural, then you want something that's cotton or cotton-like, which is what Spinnova delivers. So both the sustainability and the feeling.
How long has it taken you to develop this type of breakthrough technology then?
The company was spun out of a research institute in Finland, so our roots come from there, and it was spun out at the end of 2014, and we've been developing the technology since then, and we're now moving into the larger scale. So we have our first commercial scale factory now built in Finland, in central Finland.
Yeah.
Tell us about the supply chain as well. So how do we make the entire supply chain for this completely sustainable? Because that must be a very important element to this as well, right?
We have a technology that basically produces the fiber, but there's a lot of stages in the textile or clothing industry after that. So it's not, we need to look on each of the stages, being that as an example, when we dye a garment, when we also transport the garments and so on. So it's an end-to-end thinking, but at the end of the day, it starts also with the consumers. So it starts with you and me, that we basically need to make a different choice that we maybe have done so far.
What about price point in all of this? So I go into a store, one of the big brands that you're working for, and I see, all the sustainability sort of section. What about price point? I don't necessarily want to pay, I don't know, £20 more or whatever it is. So how do you level that type of playing field?
Yeah, I think that it comes a bit back to the incentives we were talking earlier, but it's important to say that when you as a consumer are going to buy a piece of clothing, whether it's a t-shirt or a hoodie, it's only about 5% of the cost of that, or what you pay, comes from the raw materials, but the raw materials account for 50% roughly of the emissions profile of a garment. So it requires, again, this working together with the supply chain, with the brands, with incentives externally to make sure that then we keep the kind of price point meaningful for for consumers, but it doesn't mean that you have to pay multiples more for a sustainable garment.
Many people are saying that behavioural change, finance and breakthrough technology are the three key elements that are going to help us towards net zero. What do you think about that, and what would you prioritise?
I think, if we look at from within, Spinnova is a breakthrough technology. And I believe, let's say, that's where it starts from. We will make a difference with our product or our fibre, as it almost use no water, just to put in perspective. We are only running on renewable energy, so that's another way where we make a difference.
Yeah, I'd add to that, and I think very much agree with what you're saying, Laura, that it's, from our perspective, it's innovation. So Spinnova and others are bringing those. Now we need investments in order to scale those and make a meaningful difference, and that has to come from both private and public sector. And then we need the right incentives in place to change the behaviour. So those are the three I's, and I think that's very much aligned with what you were saying.
We touched on collaboration there. How important is collaboration for both of you and Spinnova, especially when it comes to the brands you're working with, the supply chain, the global supply chain, and maybe competitors, as you mentioned?
Partnership, it's all about partnerships. It's all about collaboration. And as I mentioned, we are nurturing our existing, but also building new relationships. And we do that with trust. We do that with sharing values and sharing a vision for sustainability. So I think in overall it's super important, but close collaborations will make the difference.
What sort of emerging trends are there out there, and how do you identify those?
Yeah, I think for us, sustainability, it's not a trend. It's really all that matters, and how I would see trends. It's more about where are we focusing on what to do when it comes to sustainability as on a global level. So we've come from focusing first of all on greenhouse gas emissions. Now there's more focus on other things like water usage, land usage, chemical usage, circularity, and so on. And how Spinnova is then positioned for that is actually we have a solution that is future-proofed, and I think this is how brands also need to think about the choices that they're making. You can't just optimize one of those variables. You've got to look at all of them, and you've got to then try to find the solutions that fit that. So, when it comes to emissions reduction, we support that. And our technology is naturally circular because it can basically process also waste materials, and also Spinnova own fibre can be naturally recirculated in it. So, those are some of the ways that we're positioned to be there for the trends of the future in sustainability as well.
Well, there's a lot of potential there. What are you looking to do for the future? Where are you going to be taking Spinnova?
Where we're going in the future with Spinnova is really continuing to build those partnerships, working on other also raw materials on our side. So whether it's the textile waste Alan mentioned, whether it's the agricultural waste, there's many different things that we can use. And yeah, the collaborations with supply chain partners and brands is absolutely key. And I think, that's maybe how we'd like to end it. It's a bit of a call to arms that now we need to do something, because when we're a COP and we hear a lot about what's happening with the energy transition, and sometimes it can sound a bit frivolous almost to talk about the fashion industry, like, is that really important? But it is, and it's a big problem. It's one of the biggest polluting industries, but it's a basic need. We all need clothes. It's not about high fashion, it's about changing what everybody wears. And that's such a big problem. It needs the collaboration to work across then the industry players, but then combined with bringing in investors and the policymakers to make a difference. So that's why we're passionate about it, and we hope that things can move in the right direction.
Exactly, yeah.
Truly fascinating to see the incredible things you're doing over at Spinnova. We wish you nothing but the best going forward, and enjoy the rest of COP28. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Laura.